Welcome to the Stramaglio Show. Today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun with Andy Slawetsky. You may have heard of him. So we're doing a little bit of a microphone switch. Andy has been kind enough to allow me to have this conversation with him and interview him a little bit. So Slaw, welcome to the show.
What's happening? How are you? Happy to be here.
Speaking of what's happening, hey everybody, this is happening today. So welcome, Andy.
Thank you.
So a couple of quick questions right out of the gate. So just in case somebody on this planet doesn't know who you are, can you give, which is really impossible to believe, can you give us a little bit of background? How'd you get in this business and how long were you doing it before you're doing what you're doing now?
Well, the short of it is I sold copiers. I wasn't smart enough to do much else than that. And when I came out of college, that's what my dad wouldn't hire me to this company, Industry Analysts, I work for now. So I went out and sold in the DC area for a few years. And after I got some experience, came to work for him. He retired maybe about 10, 15 years ago. And I turned our research company into more of a media company. And ever since then, we've run the one of the largest newsletters, news services for the office equipment industry in the world.
Well, your world famous, incredible succession plan from your dad. One of the things I always found interesting, and I'm kind of curious, how did you go? What made you finally decide to go from selling copiers to taking on the mission of your father's company? And given the fact that your father is one of the most recognizable people forever in our industry, and I love him, what made you go? I think I can do this and I want to do it. What flipped in your mind?
Well, I just sort of looked at him having a company, and I was lazy. I thought, oh, here's a way for me to someday run a company. And I thought I would just come out of college and go to work for him, but I didn't have an experience in anything, so he wouldn't hire me. Um, Flash forward to after a few years of selling, which I really enjoyed. I had a great crew down there in Maryland. Many of them are still in the industry. Uh, it was a lot of fun, and it was time to move on. Though it was I wanted to move from Washington D.C. back to New York, back to Rochester, where I'm from. And it was just time, and now I had some experience, I had some value to my boss, my dad, and then in the mid '90s I joined him, and I've been here ever since.
So I want to follow up with a couple of questions. And for the audience, how is Lou doing? How's your dad doing?
Lou is doing pretty well. He's getting up there in age, but he's right now is a good time for you to ask that question. He's doing well. My mom's doing well. So knock wood, we're at a good stretch right now.
Awesome. Good to hear. The man's incredible.
He
And
is.
the funny is, he's actually funnier than you, and that's hard to
He is
beat.
very, very funny. Yes.
So you get in the business, and Lou had established himself as a pretty dynamic and important analyst company, doing a lot of research and data. How did I mean? You were in a perfect time switch there. You went from that company. What made you think, hey, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a video log, a video research, type of company. How'd that happen?
Desperation. So, as you know, and as everyone watching this video knows, this industry got real old real fast. And we were market research. We did dealer studies. We would call probably most of the people watching this video on a regular basis several times a year, and do all kinds of studies and research. And all that was funded by the companies, by the Ricos and Xeroxes and Canons and all of them, every one of them. And as the industry aged, that dried up, and we've seen a lot of our competitors go away. We've seen a lot of our former competitors evolve into other areas, and it's just a mature industry doesn't do the level of research that they used to do. I mean, these guys used to know how many pieces of paper were in every bin of every machine, and how many dealers there were, and how many sales reps they had, and we were the ones who provided that. And we got to the point where that just started slowing down. We were downsizing every year. We were a big company when I came to work for them. We were 20 people, and over time, we were not nearly that large. And honestly, the newsletter started out of free time that I had. We just weren't doing the research. We weren't getting the testing that we had. We also had a product test lab that competed with my partner now, BLI, Key Point Intelligence. There was a lot to go around back then, but nowadays there really isn't. And we just sort of got to the point where we had to close the lab. We had to wind down the research. And as that was all happening, there was this void of what I would call regular news, of standardized regular news. There were a lot of really good publications out there. Some of them are still around today. And they were all very focused on what I would say is their own agenda. They had their own news that they wanted to publicize, but they really, there was nowhere to turn where you could find everything in one place other than maybe signing up for Google alerts. And that's just too much because, as that's stocks and just everything that gets written about a company. So something in between was me, who I just started, sifting through all the content, on a daily basis that I could find for each of the companies that I thought was, if I'm still selling copiers, who would I want to follow? What would I want to know about? And it just kind of year by year over the last 12 years evolved into what you're seeing now.
Well, what you're doing is incredible. And, I've had the wonderful position to be able to watch you grow and as a person and as a business person. And what you've created is really incredible. And I applaud you for doing it. And now you got Slaw 3. You got Jake involved. How's he doing?
Jake 3 is doing awesome. It has been such a great change for my model, my day to day. Once my dad never really worked with us when we were doing the newsletter. We were still the research company until he finally, retired. And so this started as an easy thing to do, but eventually it just took off, and it got to the point where, I had a honeymoon involved somewhere in the between here, and no breaks, no stops. There was every Tuesday, every Thursday, this thing went out. So 3.5, almost 4 years ago, Jake joined us, and it's me and him now, and it's just been awesome. It's great having somebody there to help get the work done. If I have to be at a meeting, which I'm at a lot of them, as are you, it's nice to have someone back at the office, or even at the meeting, who's taken some of the burden off, and just making sure that everything goes out. Plus, he's my kid. He's my boy, and we've just had a great time together ever since he's been here. It's a pleasure to work with him, and it's third generation. It's fun to see this going on. Now he's part of your group, with the consortium, with the future leaders, and that whole young group. And it's just exciting for me. It's really exciting for his grandfather to watch. And, who knows where it's all going to go, but it's out of our hands, right? Now it's going to be in theirs.
Well, you know what? It's fun for me to watch Jake. And you're right. He's now a member of the breakaway team, and the young leaders are going to be taking over this business. And I'm proud of him. It's fun to watch him grow. I get to see him on the Patriot Pack ride, so he's now a member of the pack, which is awesome. So going on the pack side, and I want to come back to some other subjects like ECS and so on, but you were really one of the first guys that jumped into the Patriot Pack ride, and you're still a very active member every single year. What made you join the Patriot Pack, and why do you continue to do it?
I remember standing in my driveway of my previous home years ago on the phone with you, and you had just come off of just the two-person ride you did across the country just to go to Rolling Thunder. And I was into motorcycles, and you were into motorcycles, and you had a couple guys on your end that were into it. And I remember that conversation of us saying, we should do an industry ride. We should make this into an industry thing. And 1 year later, you and I were, and a couple other guys were leaving out of Phoenix wearing Konica Minolta jackets, if I remember correctly. I still have mine, and off we went, right? And that was the very first one. We rode for gosh, who did we ride for? Do you
The
remember?
Jillian Fund first.
No, the Jillian Fund was our second ride. Down in
Oh,
Florida, it was Bobby. It was Bobby Shields, right?
Bobby Shields. It
Yeah,
was Bobby
and
Shields. Yeah,
and
we
my
wrote.
friend Matt Marshall from the UK, an analyst from the UK. So that was kind of like the warm up ride. We cut our teeth on that, and then the next year, you and I got calls from Bill McLaughlin, and then we all got elephants on our shelves, right?
Yeah,
You got a
we
purple
sure did.
mug behind you. Everything's purple. That was what we rode for years.
Well, it's been an honor to ride with you, and obviously, as a brother in the pack, we've seen some fun and wonderful things. So you reminded me of a couple. I even forgot about those early rides. So let's go back to your day to day work. You talk to a lot of fascinating people. I don't know how many interviews have you done?
Oh, I don't even count them. I should have logged them somehow. I mean, I do dozens a year, so it's got to be hundreds by now.
Yeah, I would think, right? So out of all those interviews, you have the opportunity to talk to some of the finest, brightest executives, leaders, really in our industry and around the world. Do you is there like a common thing you see with some of these hugely successful people that you've connected the dots? Is there something that you see in each of these people that make them a success?
I think for the most part, the higher up, the bigger the bigger the position the leader has. Um, it just seems like a lot of times, just the better the interview, they're just either they're more comfortable with the content or more confident, and that's probably what got them to a certain level. More knowledgeable. Certainly, they're spending a lot more time talking at levels that we're just I'm so lucky to even be tied into when they just got off a trip from Japan or off the phone a weekly call with them, and you know we're really just lucky here of the level of our contacts. But these guys, I feel like not always, but a lot of times the higher up the level, most of the time these guys are there for a reason, and the interviews get better and better.
So, with all the connections and visits that you make to all the trade shows, where do you see the industry going and growing in the next few years?
Well, for some reason, production seems to be the hot spot still, and I know there's a lot of consolidation and movement in that, but that's an area according this is not what I'm thinking. This is what they're showing me, right? And the focus that I've seen, at least out of the gate this year, both from the dealer kickoffs that I've been to and some of the presentations we've had from some of the OEMs, it's production, and that's still the golden goose. A lot of these Japanese OEMs are still kind of just finding their legs in that area, and it's kind of still somewhat new to them. Some are further along, the Canons and Ricos and Konica Minoltas. Sharp, is come in lately, and you've got Kyocera coming in more lately. So, and with all the changes at Xerox, it's kind of you know I guess shown everybody the opportunity that production's here, customers want it. It's becoming more affordable, and there's a lot of really antiquated technology in that market. I think was which what also makes it really sweet, right? Because if you can go in to somebody's office and tell them, look, here you can do something faster, better, cheaper, and at the end of the year you're going to save a ton of money, and you're going to be a hero. People love to hear that. It's hard to do that in the office, right? Production's still got that area where they're able to do that. Down the road, beyond production, our BTA channel that we follow, these guys are, I believe they're hitting 100 years next year. BTA turns 100, and we'll all be, I'm sure, in Kansas City celebrating. And you have to think back, right? These copiers weren't here 100 years ago, but these businesses were. So what are they going to sell? What are they going to sell? Copiers aren't dropping off a cliff. They're not going away, like the typewriter did. But they're gonna slow down, and they're already slowing down. So what are these guys going to do to keep in business? Some of them are selling to their competitors, to their peers, and some of them are reloading for this next step, this next stage.
So, when you talk about production, you're talking about uh, high-end production printing, right?
Yeah, production printing. I should have said print. Yes.
Yeah. And does that include like label printers and so on?
I think it's the whole gamut. It's wherever you can find opportunity. Somebody in one company is going to call it production, uh, and I would say, yeah, it's production. Like if you're using FP mailing solutions and you're using some Toshiba labels and Brother labels or Epson labels. I mean, all these guys have great label. HP. All of them have really great label programs, and you can get to some pretty high end label printing. Very easily, and that's production, right? Um, more of what I was referring to was just your standard traditional, big iron, giant, fast copy print. Not copy so much as sophisticated print with job ticketing and you know um, moving things from offset and just iridescent level types of machines.
Well, you're right. I mean, it seems like all of the major OEMs are either in it or about to be in it, and I hear from dealers that it's obviously a very profitable and growth opportunity. Is there any in your mind? Is there any major or significant change with the type of salespeople they have? Is does this fit their windmill pretty easily?
I think it does. It's just the investment. If you've got the money to spend, you've got to lay down money. Those machines aren't cheap. You've got to pull them out of their boxes. You've got to get your staff, trained up on them, and it's typically more than just one person, right? Like when you get into that area, that market, these customers, this isn't just a printer that goes down and they can use another printer. This is, all business stops and they stop making money. So it has to be, they need redundancy, they need it fixed quickly, and you need, technicians that are well trained on how to do this. And these machines are sophisticated. Some of them can take 2-3 days a week to set up, right? So you've really got to make a big investment to get into that, and it's not something you're going to really put some thought behind this, because you going into production, if you're not in it already, means that you're not going to be using these dollars to go into some other areas. Maybe it's document management, maybe it's water, whatever it is that you're seeing as a way to grow your business. This is going to be a sunken cost for you for a while. You've got to get expertise in there. You've got to learn the game, learn the market, and these sales, as 6 to 12 months. These take quite a while if you're lucky, and they're few and far between. We're talking about elephant hunting here, but the payoff at the end is, you've got machines that go out into the field that are doing millions of pages a month. How many A3 machines, how many A4 machines do you need to sell to get a million pages a month?
So again, switching gears, I think you'd agree our industry is one of the most generous industries, well, at least I've ever encountered in my 50 years in the business. And I understand, and maybe you'd like to share with the audience, you've created a new industry charity golf tournament, something I know that you're very passionate about. Would you like to share with everybody how do you create it and what is it?
Well, I apparently was shooting my mouth off at some point, talking about how I always wanted to start a golf tournament for charity, and Mark Grice and Kevin Van Kennel found out. And once Kevin gets an idea in his head, that's the end of it, right? And so he kind of lit a fire under all of us and made a few calls, and we were lucky to uh, be introduced to the American Cancer Society in Michigan, who was in the position to offer us a title sponsorship for an event that they have in August. So with that, we made a few calls, and we got four incredible companies just stepped right up. We had Konica Minolta, Sharp, Xerox, and Great America stepped up to be our four platinum sponsors, our four main sponsors, and then just so many more after that. Xerox, I mentioned Xerox. We got Toshiba is going to be a gold sponsor. Papercut's going to be a silver sponsor. We have a bunch of other companies who are going to be buying foursomes: ECI, HP, Caton, just lots and I believe Caton is a lot. Caton's on the fence, but now that I said that, they may have to. But we've got a lot of people who are looking to do this. So gosh, who else? U.S. Bank, Applied Innovation is going to have a couple foursomes there, and we're honoring. We're donating the funds that we raised to Sandy Lowry, who who's mom of Larry boys. And as you know, Sandy, we honored her, you and I did, when we rode out there with the Patriot pack a few years ago, right after she passed. And so, it's going to be a really special day. Atlantic tomorrow's office will be there. Larry got in touch with us, and Kevin, obviously UTech. So Rico's involved. We've got a good start going. We've got some more foursomes to sell. We've got maybe another sponsor or two to get, but we've got a really great just couple of days we're going to spend in Michigan, and just another example of all these companies, all these competitors, all these people coming together under one roof to raise a buttload of money for charity. And you and I have seen this happen again and again. You and I did it last summer, over $100,000 to scholarships for people in this industry, for military families. And I don't think they need to be from our industry, but they need to be military families, if I remember correctly. But and the Jillian Fund, as we mentioned before, and the Canada Dinner, year in and year out, raising millions. And there's just no shortage of just awesome philanthropy in this industry. And I'm glad to start another one. And I love to golf, and this just seemed like a no brainer. Just a chance to go play a bucket list course, a course I would never get to play. We've got Bob Goldberg helping us out, offering some advice. He's part of the board, and just a great crew of people helping out, and everybody's, jumping in to pitch in. You've offered your help as well. We're just very blessed to have the people around us in the industry here that we get to work with every day. It's a great group of people.
So, Slav, before we forget, where is it and what are the dates?
It is August 18th. It is going to be in, what's the name of the, it's in Oakland Hills Country Club, and that is in Bloomfield Township, and that's right outside of Detroit. So we wanted to make it somewhere that was easy to get to, Detroit, Delta Hub, just right in, right out. And we'll come in Sunday afternoon. We'll have some sort of welcome reception, some special fun that evening. Next day, we'll golf. We'll do an awards dinner that evening, and then we're all out the next morning. Quick and sweet.
So to anyone out there who wants to be a sponsor, just reach out and directly to you, right, Slav?
Reach out to me, go to the website. You can find contact information or more information on the website. But yep, go any way that you want to be involved. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Okay, so, and I will be there with my bad hips and probably not playing golf, but I'll be there. So moving a little bit more interpersonal about you, Slaw. Outside of your family, let's not. We assume Lou is probably one of your greatest mentors for a moment. Out in the industry, who has guided you the most? Who's been someone you would like to recognize as a mentor?
I don't know how much of a mentor he's been at this point in my career, but it's just my favorite story. My sales trainer, when I started selling, we were the biggest Muratech fax dealership. They were Murata back then. I
Whoa,
believe
Jim DeMidio.
Jim DeMidio. He was my trainer. He would come in and show us these fancy fax machines that we weren't even allowed to sell because we were just Xerox agents. We were beeper boys working in the basement at this dealership. It was an agency actually, but they were a fax dealership. We were like Xerox's biggest on the East Coast, but we were Murata's biggest in the country. And Jim would come in and he would train us. And I just remember him from back then. And like I was just a snot-nosed rep, but he would talk to everybody. And he was a DSM back then, but I have memories of all these people. Vic Jackson was at Konica Minolta back then, I believe. No, he must have been with Xerox back then because he was doing some training for us. He came in when I was an agent. I remember meeting all these people. He was a friend of our owner, Lee Weinstein, and just I met some really wild people very early on in my career that I crossed paths with. As I got older, as I got more mature in different roles. My sales manager works for Carter down in DC. Selling Toshiba brands, and I don't know. I just had a lot of really great people around me at all points in my career. You're a big one. You're a big one. Bob Goldberg, I didn't hang out with till later in my career, but just I can always count on him for advice. And Raj Dadani, another good person that it's in my life now. A lot of these guys are from the ride. They really. I got to know him really well because of the ride. I've known Jim forever, Domidio, but you know, these last however 8 to 10 years we've been doing that Jillian ride and now the Patriot ride. You just get to know people on another level when you sit next to a highway, trying not to electrocute yourself on a fence, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a story I'd like to share one day. Not probably for thousands, but Slaw had a very interesting moment as we were riding our motorcycles across Texas, and let's just say that he had to relieve himself frequently, and that was probably one of the funniest moments throughout all the thousands of rides, miles we've ridden. But I think you're right. The Patriot Pack. I hope you'd agree with this. I think one of the things about the Patriot Pack that I'm just super, super happy and grateful about and for is the ability to pull some really wonderful people together and for good causes. And riding across the country like that with all of you guys has built some very, very special relationships, of which I thank you for.
Well, and I thank you. And, honestly, I've cried more on that ride year in, year out. And every year I get older and tougher and think it's not going to happen. And then something happens. Like it ended last year at Dex with them giving us a check for 30, I'm going to say it, $35,000. We've never had a check like that. And that was from the Doyles. That wasn't even from Dex. That was right from their own hearts. And that the reception they threw us and every single one that led up to that along the way, it just, the momentum, the emotion builds as you get through that ride. I'm sure you feel it every year. And, I haven't been on the bike the last couple of years. I've been in the RV, but especially when you're on the bike, the closer you get to the end, you get this, I don't know what the feeling is. It's hard to describe, but it's just a building kind of momentum, and the emotion just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And especially because we always used to end with that dinner with George, so you knew what was waiting with the speeches and talking about Jillian, and just it was just such an emotional way to finish. And then the way we always used to ride for the veterans through DC during Rolling Thunder, and I mean, you can't not cry for that. It's every year it's just the most emotional thing I think I do, and it's again, when you're surrounded by these incredible people that are part of this pack, and we're visiting people who are opening up their businesses and feeding us and donating and making speeches about how great we are just for riding to pick up a check. It's just they're the ones donating the money and just opening things up for us and allowing us to do this. And it's just every year there's no shortage of companies that just want to do it, right? I mean, it's a matter. The biggest problem we have sometimes we can't get to all of them.
Well, you're right. The older I get, the harder it is to keep the emotions in. And when you're riding a motorcycle, that adrenaline just gets higher and higher and higher, and the people you meet are incredibly, emotional. Remember the Reverend at Sistel?
Yes, I do. I
I
do. I have
mean,
great pictures of him.
yeah, just incredible. So, as we round the corner here, what advice do you have, or might you share with the young people coming into the business today, or that are coming up, the young Turks?
The young kids, I feel like it's so easy to look at that generation or these next couple of generations and say this is who they are, right? But when I the people I see on the stage from that group of yours, there's nothing like what I have in my head when I start describing, or when I hear the stories about the kids who show up in interviews with their parents, or whose parents show up for them for the interview because they couldn't make it, and just all the craziness we hear with this generation. I think, just like all generations, there's a bunch of kids out there that want to make money. They want the nice car. They want the, nice house. They want the stable family life. They want to go on nice trips, right? Those kids still exist, and it's a matter of finding them. Maybe it's not as common as it was. I know, this generation, and I am generalizing, and maybe it's not quite as important it was to my generation. It's your generation, but there is still that segment of kids. We're all on Instagram. We're all on social media. You see the posts that some of these kids make. Kylie Jenner is still, for some reason, still a big deal to these up and coming generations. And she's all about the bling and all about the money. I go to a POA event. I go to a Visual Edge event. I go to, Flex, right? I went to all their kickoffs this year. And man, there are some heavy hitters in those rooms. There were, between those companies, over a dozen kids under 30 years old, all making more than $1 million a year. They're all making more than me and you put together, right? $1 million a year plus, and they're under 30 years old. That's the newsletter headline. That's the Canada issue, is the heavy hitter issue. I want to see them do one like that, right? And just put these kids out there and publicize them, because I couldn't believe how many there were when they were going through the award winners and how much they did in revenue. And I'm doing the math in my head, like, there may be a lot of kids out there that want to work these hippy dippy jobs, but there's a lot of kids out there that want Porsches and like to dress up and have custom suits. And you go to some of these kickoff meetings, you'll see them there, and that's still out there. And it's the cultures of some of these businesses that help are conducive to competitiveness and helping salespeople thrive like that. That's not dead in this generation. Those kids are still out there. You have to find them. But I think going forward, I think our industry is going to be fine. It's just you just got to. It's the same problem we've always had. It's sifting through all the crap to find the gem, right?
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point. I've, with you, joined a couple of these pretty significant, dealer events, and it's so refreshing, to see these younger people coming through the rank and file now. You and I were at Flex, the POA thing. You got Barry Simon's son, and you've got James Loeffler. You got all these young, wonderful people that aren't necessarily easy to find because we're just not in that environment, but they're there. And it's exciting for our industry to watch these young folks come up, and my daughter, your son. I mean, it's all there, right?
Yeah. It's still the Wild West. It's still the Wild West out there. If you're a good salesperson, if you've got that swagger, and you know what I'm talking about, if you've got that killer, salesperson instinct, your product, you got a good company behind you. Um, it's not. There's a reason. There's a reason those people are all bringing in that kind of coin. And they're well trained, they know how to do their job, they're effective at it, and that money's just sitting there. They found their way. And whether it's in education or whether it's in legal, whatever vertical they seem to have hooked on, production, they have found a place. And every one of these kids out there is under 30. And it makes me look back on my career when I did okay. I wasn't, I was a geo rep. I wasn't slaying giants. I got a couple big ones here and there, but nothing like what these guys are doing. And it makes me look back and I'm like, man, I should have just tried harder. I wish I would have known to do these things. And or I wish I wouldn't have been so stinking lazy sometimes, right? Just that money's there. It's just you got to go get it.
Well, it's the same attitude. Like you said, you got to go get it. And, let's give Jimmy D a little credit. He trained you and he got you going. So good for him. So, again, as we wind down here, two final questions. One is simple. I'm going to ask you, do you have a favorite Frank Sinatra song? Speaking of swag.
Oh, geez, man, I listen to it all the time. I don't know which I'd say is my favorite. I'm gonna say New York, New York, but it's not my favorite. It's not even close.
All
Uh,
right.
you put me on the spot. You put me on the spot. I'm gonna go New York, New York, because I'm in New York.
All right. And if you want to change it, we could always edit it back. Yeah. So again, my final question, when you look at IT services and all this new technology, AI, and bring us home with what's your take on all of this new stuff?
That's a really good question, because it's all we hear about is AI. Everything's AI. There are some significant investments being made in it, so it's not like you can ignore it, right? I mean, Konica Minolta just had a big one last week. HP had one, I think it was a month or two ago. Everybody's buying intelligence. Rico may have bought one in Europe. I can't remember if Rico did, but it is, like it or not, as a buzzword. There is an intelligence here that is becoming very helpful to everybody, and it depends on where you're going to go and what you're going to use it for. We're a publishing company. We use chat, we use editing services, we use research bots, we use things of that nature. These office equipment resellers are starting to get their feet wet with hotline capability, right? Xerox has been helping roll something out with their hotline that they did a couple of years ago, and now they want to make it available to dealers that may be a turnkey program that they can actually go sell. But before they get to that, I think there's a lot of opportunity. CEO Juice has been, claims they've been doing this for years, and in the service side of things, and using intelligence to look at metrics, look at your dealer metrics, your inventories and things of that nature. So it's been here. We're getting better and better at it. The bots are getting smarter and smarter. It's an evolution. I think, honestly, I'm a little disappointed to where we are right now, because with all the stuff we've heard for the last 2-3 years, I still can't find my email. I still can't just say, find me the email from about this, right? It's just, how are some things still so unmanaged? So I feel like we're getting close. We're scratching the surface. It's still a lot of work. It's something you need to be aware of, and going forward, it's going to make our life a lot easier. But I just I think it's kind of always been there, lurking in the background, and now we've just brought it to the surface, and so now everybody's talking about it. But the big thing to me is when you see these companies investing, and we just mentioned a couple of our companies, right? But you look at the news feed, and you look at AI, and you look at the big companies that are investing, the Googles, right, and the Amazons, and just the Microsoft, and when you get to that level, and that's what they're focused on, you know that's where it's going, right? That's where the world is going. But it'll be really cool to see what we take away, what makes it to our world. We had a big step forward in our industry when ChatGPT came along. Suddenly everybody's emails got a lot cleaner. The content on everybody's website looks a lot nicer now. A lot less typos out there, right? And honestly, you're better off having a typo now, because everybody knows you actually wrote it. Right. So, fortunately for me, I'm really good at typos. So, and errors in my, newsletters, and that's why we have to send them sometimes more than once. But AI is big, and it's just going to keep getting bigger. It's, everyone's going to find different things to use it for, and it's going to make your life a lot easier.
Well, you have been an advocate for pretty much everything I've ever done in my career. You've been a big supporter.
Big fan,
Uh,
big fan.
the consortium, the Executive Connection Summit, something I'm very honored and grateful for. You've been a good, dear friend, and really an advocate for the industry, and a supporter of what we've been doing with ECS, especially, which we brought chat out a couple 3 years ago. So as you go through some of the things that we've done and the industry's done, I'll give you the opportunity to close this out by offering anything that you want to share with anybody, any thought you have, and or any advice before we close.
So I guess the only advice I have is buckle up, because the last 2 months, it's just funny. We all thought we were on easy street when this administration came in, and now they are shaking things up. The number of calls I have been on where the word tariffs comes up, it's just every one of them. So I'm going to make sure we talk about it on here, because why not, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen, and it's such uncertainty that you have everybody expecting prices are going to increase, and I think we've all kind of gotten our heads into that position that it's going to happen. Prices are going to increase, but they were probably going to increase anyway before the tariffs happened, and it's just this every day of, they're happening, they're not happening, they're happening, but they're not happening to our products, but they're happening to some of our products, but maybe not the other. So it's just been just wild, honestly, to watch. And in these guys out there, these dealers, the manufacturers, the OEMs, having to answer these calls to the dealers, having to call back to Japan and find out what's going on. What's our plan? Okay, now what's our plan? Like every other day, the negotiations evolve into a new phase, and the amounts change. So it's just been, to be a news guy where it doesn't affect me, and to just be able to sit back and sit with my popcorn and just watch. the last month or two, and then with a couple of new companies, muscling into the space, Fujifilm coming in, this year is off to such an incredibly wild and shaky start. Caton launching their own brand, right? Like we've just had so much going on out of the gate, and we're all still chugging along. Everything's okay, right? We're all sitting here on eggshells waiting for something really crazy to happen. Just something big, something, I don't know. I don't know what it could be, but it's just this year has just started off the anxiety level. I think throughout our industry, I think there's a lot of tension right now. These tariffs are really making people concerned, and nobody knows what to do because you don't know what's going to happen. You can make a contingency plan, but until you see how it all really plays out, what does it mean? Where does it really hit me? I mean, it's got to be wild to watch for you too.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it's certainly been entertaining, if not, some anxiety creation. But I'll leave it on a positive thought. Nothing happens until it happens. Don't worry about it. Plan for it and get shit done.
Hey, man, this industry, I will leave it on this. This industry is bulletproof. We survived a pandemic. We
Boom.
have survived the channel has survived recessions. We've survived over and over and over again, and we're still here. We're still here. We help customers keep their businesses running, whether they're schools or banks or law firms or manufacturing plants that are about to start getting built all over the place. We are what drives this country. We're behind the scenes, and whether it's copiers and printers now or IT or whatever it is these guys move into, all these resellers, we are here to help customers. They always have, and they always will.
And that is a great way to end it. So wonderful, wonderful interview. It's always an honor to be with you. You've got a heart of gold. I wish you nothing but great success with your golf tournament, you and Kevin and Mark, and I'm sure it's going to be a huge success. We are in the next generation, fifth industrial revolution, and we're going to have some fun.
Yes, we
So
are.
to everyone out there, thank you, Andy. We appreciate it. You're going to enjoy this one.
Thank you, Mike. Good seeing you.